You know, there are some verses in the Bible that are just so well known, so beloved, they feel like old friends. We're going to dive into one of those today. But what if I told you that we might have been missing its real meaning this whole time? Let's take a closer look.
Yep, that's the one. Matthew 18, verse 20. I mean, you've probably heard this 100 times, right? In small groups, prayer meetings, it's that go-to verse for comfort, that beautiful, simple promise that feels so personal. And the way we usually understand it is just lovely. The idea is that anytime even a couple of us get together in His name, boom, Jesus is right there with us. It's an incredible assurance of His closeness, and it's brought comfort to millions.
But here's the twist. What if pulling that single verse out of its neighborhood, out of its original context, completely changes what it's saying? Because the verses surrounding it, well, they transform this cozy promise into something way more formal, way more authoritative.
See, this famous verse doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's actually the final sentence, the closing statement in a formal procedure for church discipline. So you've got to shift your thinking from a coffee shop chat to a courtroom proceeding.
Right before our famous line, the passage lays out this super strict, three-step process for handling sin inside the community. First, you go to the person alone, one-on-one. If that doesn't work, you bring one or two witnesses, and if they still refuse to listen, then you bring the whole matter before the entire church.
And the consequence for ignoring the church? It is severe. To be treated as a Gentile and a tax collector in that first-century Jewish world, that meant expulsion. It meant being cut off, becoming an outcast from the entire community and its promises. A very big deal. Now, to really get what's happening here, we have to decode some of the specific, almost legalistic language that Jesus is using. These aren't just casual, everyday words. They are packed with meaning about the church's authority.
First off, the word for church itself, ekklesia. This didn't just mean any old get-together. It was the Greek word used to translate the Hebrew word kahal, which was the formal, sacred assembly of the people of Israel before God. So when Jesus uses this word, he's basically saying his followers are the new, structured assembly of God's people.
And then you have these phrases binding and loosing. In verse 18, right before our verse, Jesus says, "Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven." For his audience, this was not confusing at all. It was familiar language used by rabbis for exercising real, legitimate, legal authority. This authority to bind and loose had two very specific functions. First, it was the power to forbid or permit certain actions, basically to interpret the law for the community. And second, it was the power to excommunicate or absolve someone, to officially kick them out or welcome them back in. We're talking both legislative and judicial power here.
Okay, so with all of this context, this formal legal process, a structured assembly, and real judicial power, let's circle back and re-examine our famous verse about the two or three gathered together.
This is where we hit a logical puzzle. If the common interpretation is right, that any gathering of two or three believers is the church, then that whole three-step process we just talked about kind of starts to fall apart. Just think about it for a second.
Okay, so in step 2, you take one or two witnesses with you. That makes a group of 2 or 3 people, right? But if that small group is already the church, then why on earth is there a step 3 that tells you to tell it to the church? You'd be telling the church twice. The whole process becomes redundant. It just doesn't make logical sense. And this brings us to the main point. The 2 or 3 in verse 20 aren't just any believers. They are the official witnesses from step 2 who are now acting as judges in this disciplinary process. So Jesus' promise to be in the midst of them isn't just about a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's a divine guarantee that He, God Himself, is ratifying their official binding verdict. It's about His presence validating their authority.
So what? Why does this even matter? Well, it matters a lot. Because, according to the source material, this interpretation points to a totally different understanding of what the church is. It's not just some invisible spiritual idea, but a visible, structured institution right here on earth.
You really have two main ways of looking at this. One is the idea of an invisible church, a spiritual union of all believers everywhere. But the process Jesus lays out in Matthew 18 seems to demand a visible institution. I mean, how can you tell it to the church if it's not an actual identifiable body you can go to? How can you get kicked out if there's no defined membership? The passage seems to require a real church with real leaders and real authority.
And this isn't some newfangled reinterpretation. This idea of a visible, structured church is ancient.
As early as 110 AD, a guy named Saint Ignatius of Antioch, who was a disciple of the Apostle John, by the way, wrote that without the clear structure of a bishop, priests, and deacons, you simply don't have a church.
So, to wrap up the argument from our sources, Matthew 18 isn't just a friendly chat. It's a blueprint. It lays out a formal legal process. It gives divine authority to human leaders to make decisions that stick. It establishes that there are clear boundaries for membership, and it gives the power to enforce those boundaries through excommunication.
And all of this leaves us with a final, really challenging question. That comforting little verse we started with, when you put it back in its original frame, seems to become the very foundation for a church with real, binding authority. And it forces us to ask ourselves, is the church just a spiritual idea, or does it actually need a visible structure and defined authority to truly be the church? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.